වාණිජ, විද්‍යා, ගණිත, කලා, තාක්ෂණ වේදය, විෂය ධාරාවන් වල සියලුම විෂයන් සඳහා විශ්වවිද්‍යාල කතිකාචාර්යවරුන් සහ රජයේ පාසල්වල ප්‍රවීණ ආචාර්ය මණ්ඩලය විසින් මෙහෙයවනු ලබන දේශන නැනපවුර YouTube channel ඔස්සේ නැරඹිය හැක. ඉදිරි දේශන දැනගැනීම සඳහා නැනපවුර YouTube channel subscribe කරන්න. දැයි දූ දරුවන්ගේ අනාගත ජයග්‍රහණයට.
Hello everyone, now we are going to start our business studies lecture. Madam Sanjeevani joins with us today. Tell the friends who could not attend today can watch today's lecture on our Nanapur YouTube channel. So I invite our Madam Sanjeevani who is joining with us today. Hello Madam.
Hello, thank you. Okay, children, I would like to facilitate you all today, right? So, first of all, I think that all of you all must have chosen business studies as a subject, so I'm happy to hear that. And first, I'll give you a brief introduction about the paper, right? Before you start studying this, you need to know what type of a paper that you get, right? So it has 30 MCQs, the first part, and 10 gap filling questions where that you don't get gap filling from other question papers such as economics or accounting. You don't get those gap filling. So only for business studies you get that gap filling questions, right? So that those 10 questions, apart from that you get 10 specific answer questions, right? So that's the first paper, right? So then the second paper you get part 1 and part 2. Then part 1 you have 4 questions, and as well as part 2 also have 4 questions, and then you need to choose 2 from each and you need to answer 5 questions, right? So I thought of starting from the very first lesson, foundation of business. All right, so I can just start it, and while I'm doing it, and if you have any doubts or any clarification, if you want me to explain more, so you can just send through the chat box so that I can explain more. I can clear your doubts, right? So we'll start, children, then. All right. Okay, so this is the first lesson that you get when you're studying business studies. This is the first unit that you get to study, right? So this is foundation of business, right? So now first of all we'll see what business is. Okay, so what is business? Now before I start this, I would like to tell you this, right? Now since you all are studying business studies, and just think that you have your own business. When you're answering the questions, when you think about studying this subject, think that you have your own business. So then it's very much easy to answer because it's so much practical. Because day-to-day life, you need to buy goods and you need to, we don't know now, after A-levels and in future, you will be having your own business, right? So for that, so this will be very much benefited. Okay, so then we'll start, children. So first thing, business. What is business? So if you have done your O-levels business studies, you must have learned this, right? The definition of business. So but here now you are just explaining a bit more than that, right? We are expecting more than that, right? So now business can be all the activities related to production, distribution, selling of goods and services with a profit motive, right? Sometimes there are non-profitable organizations as well, right? You can't say all the businesses are profit motive, but there are non-profitable organizations also. But here, when we are defining business, you need to define in this manner, right? All the activities related to the production, distribution, selling of goods and services with a profit motive in order to satisfy human needs and wants. So everything we do to satisfy human needs and wants, we consume as consumers from our side, right? From consumers' perspective. So we just consume something to satisfy ourselves, right? So likewise, if you are a seller, you do something, you sell something to satisfy human needs and wants. If they don't satisfy, you will not get the benefit. They will not buy that again, right? So this is basically business. All the activities related to the production, distribution, selling of goods and services with a profit motive in order to satisfy human needs and wants can be defined as business, right? Then when studying business, right? So you get some terms that you need to know. Now here, in this definition itself, it says human needs and wants. So you need to know what needs and you need to know what wants are, right? Now we'll see what needs. The physical and mental conditions which are compulsory to be fulfilled by the human, right? So this is physical and mental conditions, something compulsory, right? You need survive. You need these particular things to survive. Without that, you can't survive, right? So these needs can be defined as the physical and mental conditions, right, which are compulsory to be fulfilled, right? So now I have given some examples here: food, clothes, house, education, health, communication, transport, safety. Those are the examples of need. You need food to survive. You need clothes, right? You need a house to live, right? Now, earlier the education was not considered as need, but now it is a need, right? You need to educate yourself from anywhere, from any way, right? And the health, that is also a need. And communication, you need to communicate with others, right? Transportation is also a need, right? Safety, you should think about safety also, right? So these are the examples for needs. All right, then we'll go to wants. What are wants? Wants are the different ways of fulfilling these needs. Now, what are needs? The physical and mental conditions which are compulsory to be fulfilled by humans. Those are needs. Wants can be the ways of fulfilling those needs. Right now, suppose that you have the need is a food. So there are various ways of fulfilling food, your hunger. I can eat rice, you can eat bread, someone can eat string hoppers. There are various ways of fulfilling those needs, right? That will be differ from one person to another person, right? But the need you can't you can't separate in that manner. Your hunger, my hunger, the same, right? But the way of fulfilling that can be differ, right? You can be fulfilled by eating string hoppers. I can fulfill hunger by eating bread, right? So those are wants. Wants are the different ways of fulfilling the needs. Now here, rice, bread, string hoppers, tea, right? So these are some of the examples of wants. All right, then now we'll see the differences between needs and wants. What are the differences between needs and wants? Now, first one, limited needs. Wants unlimited. Why is it? Now you can see needs. 1 minute. Needs. Now it's like this. Now I told you needs, the examples for needs: food, clothes, house, those are limited, right? But the ways of fulfilling those needs are unlimited. You can have various types of food. You can have various types of clothes, right? And education, you can take private education. You can just go to a government education free of charge, right? And even for health, right? Then that's the first difference: limited, unlimited. Needs common to every person, as I told you earlier. Your hunger, my hunger, the same, right? But wants differ from person to person. Now I explained that matter now. So your hunger is same as my hunger, but the way of fulfilling your hunger is different from mine, right? So you can say needs common to every person, wants differ from person to person, right? Then needs essential for survival. So you need food to survive, children. But wants are not essential for survival. You don't really need a pizza to fulfill your hunger. You can take a bread. You can take a loaf of bread. You can take string hoppers, right? It is not essential for survival, right? And the other one is needs cannot be created by businessmen. What do you mean by this? Now, the businessman, when you start studying marketing, you will be learning in detail about this, right? So, businessman cannot create needs. Businessman cannot, or the marketer cannot create your hunger. That will come to you, right? But wants can be created by businessmen. So, you know, by looking at the advertisement, if you don't really need, even you tend to buy that, no, by looking at the advertisements, right? So that the marketer has created. I will give you an example for this, right? So in USA, the fathers go to buy diapers for their infants, right? So then when they go to buy diapers, now near the diapers shelf where that they have stored, so near that, now they have marketers, they have identified these fathers only come to buy diapers, most of the fathers come, right? So but now what they have done was the marketers or the businessmen, so near the diaper shelf, they display some beer cans. So the fathers, they come to buy diapers by looking at the beer cans, they buy that also. Here that they have created that, right? So they don't come to buy beer cans, they come to buy diapers, right? But the marketer or the businessman has created that one. Okay, so then that is known as cannot be created by businessman and can be created by businessman. All right. Then the other one, needs cannot be changed by social forces, right? Your hunger, your friends cannot create, right? So there is no brand name for that. Okay, you also getting hungry, I'm also getting hungry. You can't categorize with brands, but wants can be created by changed by social forces. How can it be? Now your friend is using a Nike bottle, so you also need a Nike bottle. So now see social forces, right? So you don't really need that, but by looking at your friends, you know, the status, by having that, so you also want to fall into that category. Okay, so the wants can be changed by social forces, right? So once again, we'll see the differences between needs and wants. Needs limited, wants unlimited. Needs common to every person. Wants differ from person to person. Needs essential for survival. Wants not essential for survival. Needs cannot be created by businessmen. Wants can be created by businessmen. Needs cannot be changed by social forces. Wants can be changed by social forces, right? So these are the differences between needs and wants. All right. Now, the next one is product, right? So how can we identify products? How can we define products? Anything offered to the market, right? So if there's something that will fulfill human needs and wants, you can call that as products. All right. So products can be categorized mainly as goods and services, right? So don't, I have seen children, they're using products. Sometimes they think that product as a good only. No, goods and services, both are fall into products, right? So product in the sense good, that can be a good or that can be a service. Then differences between goods and services. What are the differences between goods and services? Goods tangible, you can touch, right? Services intangible, you cannot touch service, right? Then goods can be stored. Services you cannot store. Right now, take my service, it is a service, right? And goods you can touch. Now, if you take a table, you can touch, right? So you can store, you can keep that in a place. Then goods, identical products can be product. You can produce same tables, 100 tables you can produce. But services varies according to the service provider. If I am a service provider, my service and the way that I deliver my lecture differ from another lecturer or tutor, right? It varies according to the service provider, right? If you go to a doctor, one particular doctor has one type of a service, and the other doctor has another type of a service. Okay, so it varies according to the service provider. And the goods separate, you cannot separate from the producer. If the now producer is producing that, but the service you can, goods separable from the producer, right? Now I am the producer, I'm making a table, I can separate that. Okay, but service you cannot separate. No, can you separate my service from myself? No, you cannot do that. But the good you can separate. The good producer. If you are making a table, so that carpenter and the table, two different things, right? But the service, myself and my service, I cannot separate. Okay, so these are the differences between goods and services. So sometimes you might think, like, children, they think that it is not necessary to know in detail, but when you're writing answers, all these things needed, right? So you need to know from the beginning, okay? And you don't need to know very much extras, but if you can just go through the same note and the same thing that is given, provided to you, so that's more than enough, right? So there, now in future I'll teach you how to write and how to organize the answers, because when we get the answer scripts, we see how much disorganized, and because now children, they don't know how to score marks, right? And the other thing, children, when they are asking differences, right, please draw a table and write the differences. So it is very much easy to score marks rather than writing paragraphs and paragraphs. Okay, when they are asking to contrast or write the differences, you can just, draw a table and just write the differences, right? So each question carries 4 marks. Right, so it's better if you can just write 4 points if they have not specifically mentioned, right? Those are the tips that you need to know when writing answers, right? So in future, when we are writing answers, we'll discuss all these things, right? So now here, these are the differences between goods and services. Then we'll see the characteristics of a business. So what are the characteristics, children? Now, if it's a business, how do you know this? Now, how do you identify a business? There are certain characteristics, right? Now, we'll see the first one. Exchange or selling takes place. I will explain each and every one in detail, right? First, I will read these characteristics. Exchange or selling takes place. Transaction of goods and services take place. Continuous transactions will take place. Motivated by profit, has a risk, creates wants, and economic activity. So these are the characteristics of a business. All right, now we'll see the first one. Exchange or selling takes place. What do you mean by this? Now, all the businesses sell or exchange goods and services for monetarily valued, children. Right? If you're going to buy something, you need to pay, no? Right? If you're going to sell something, you're hoping to get something, get money from that person. No? That because it's a business, right? So that's the essential factor of the business. Exchange or selling takes place, right? If there's nothing like that, if there is no such selling or exchange, then that is not a business, children. Okay, now suppose that you have a vegetable, you're growing vegetables, right? So you're growing vegetables for your consumption. That is not a bit. Now suppose, now for an example, you're growing vegetables and that is for your consumption. So you have found some extras with you, right? So you're giving that for your neighboring house or the neighbor, right? So he pays you for that. But that is not a business. Why is it? You don't do it continuously, no? Right? So that is not a business. Okay? So you just do it only for that time, right? That is not a business because of that. So exchange or selling takes place. Now here the example that I have taken, cooking food for family members at home is not considered as a business. But if you cook food to sell, that is considered as a business, right? So if you are cooking now, my previous example, if you are growing vegetables for your consumption, it is not a business. But if you are growing vegetables to sell, your ultimate purpose is to sell, that is a business, right? So now here, I hope that you get this properly. Exchange or selling takes place. Okay, that's the main essential factor of the business. Then we'll see the second one. Transaction of goods and services take place, right? So transaction, you do that for particular amount, money, right? Now here, all the businesses produce or purchase goods and services in order to sell others. They can be consumer goods or industrial goods. Now here, goods can be categorized as consumer goods and industrial goods, right? So what are these consumer goods, children? So if you're buying goods for final consumption, those goods are known as consumer goods, right? Sugar, flour, right? Then what? Toothpaste, cake of soap, consumer goods. You buy that for final consumption. But if you're buying a good just to produce something else, that is industrial goods or business goods. All right. So consumer goods, goods which are bought for final consumption. Industrial goods, goods which are bought for the production of consumer goods. You're getting those things to produce something else. That is industrial goods. So the services, those are intangible, such as electricity, insurance, banking, right? Those are some of the examples of services. Okay, and so our second characteristic is transaction of goods and services take place, right? So that is that. Now what's the first thing? Exchange or selling takes place. Second one, transaction of goods and services take place. Third one, continuous transactions take place. What do you mean by this? Continuous transaction. Now, if you're growing vegetables only for, for your consumption, so I told you that is not a business, right? But now, if you have you found out some extra vegetables and if you are selling that to your neighboring house, right? Only for that time, only for that particular time. So that is not a business. But if you do continuously, that is a business. Right now here, the example here, if a person sells his old scooter, which was used by him, it's not a business. Right? Now he has an old scooter, so no use of having it. So he's selling that. So it's not a business. But if he sells the scooters continuously, so that means it's a business. So if you are doing a business, you need to do it continuously, not only for 1 day or 2 days, right? So that's continuous transaction take place. All right, so now we discussed 3 points. Exchange or selling takes place. Transaction of goods and services take place. Continuous transactions take place. The next one, motivated by profit or benefits. Now, children, if you do something, if you get a profit, you will be motivated. No? Now, suppose if you are working for a company, now when you get a salary and when you get something, or a bonus, you'll get motivated. You will get motivated, right? So likewise, if you have your own business, right, when you are doing that, when you receive a profit, so you will be motivated. Okay, so that's the basic goal of a business. All right, so the basic goal of a business is to earn money and acquire wealth, right? A profit earned in terms of rupees and cents, and income more than the expenditure. So you know how to calculate profit, right? So the differences between income and expenses. If it's now it says in terms of rupees and cents. If income more than the expenditure, that is the profit. Okay, building business relationships, generating business opportunities, and providing social welfare also included in profit. Right? So accordingly, there are profit motive businesses as well as businesses with non-profit motive, as I told you very early. Right? So profit in the business field is essential for the expansion of business. Now, suppose there are non-profitable organizations. How do they survive in the business, children? How do they survive? With the subscription fees, donation, right? So from that only they survive. All right. Otherwise, they don't gain a profit. No. Okay. So now this is another characteristic, motivated by profit or benefit. All right. Then yes, promotions is also yes. Somebody send me through the chat box. Yeah, because now when we discuss about motivation, we are discussing in detail about motivation, right? So there are ways of motivating children. Okay, financially and non-financially, right? So financially, if you are motivating, you can give bonuses, you can give incentives, or from monetarily. But non-financially, how can you motivate? Right? You can give promotions, you can give insurance coverages, right? Free trips, right? So free education, right? So motivated by rewards, yes, exactly. So those are the ways of motivating an employee, right? So if it's a businessman, from the business's perspective, how now? This is how the employees are motivated, no? Right? How can the businessman be motivated? By gaining a profit, actually, right? So this is another characteristic, motivated by profit, right? Then there is a risk also, children. Now there are two categories, no? There are risk takers, there are risk averse, right? If you are a risk taker, you can be an entrepreneur, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to face risk, right? So if you're going to do a business, you have no other choice, right? Sometimes you might gain a profit, sometimes you might not gain a profit. So there is a risk, but you have to, take that risk. Right? So if you are a good businessman, you need to face the risk, right? No option. There are risks in the business due to the uncertainty in earning profit, right? So as I told you, sometimes next month you might gain a loss, right? And the possibility of incurring a loss. Since the future of a business is uncertain, children. Okay, so I think it's clear. Changes in the business environment. Now, business environment is also changing. Right? The inability to control there are certain facts that you cannot control. Now we'll see what are those facts. Okay, now here in Sri Lanka also, now, we never thought this will happen. Okay, so these crises, so it's a risk. Right now we'll see what are the other uncertainty facts for a business. Changes in consumer taste, design, and demand. Today you will like some type of a design, but tomorrow you might not like that. You can change your mind, right? And then you can change your taste. You might like today a particular taste, but tomorrow you can change, right? So that is a risk, children, right? So then your demand also can. Now sometimes, today you might like my product, but now tomorrow in future you might like my competitor's product. Okay, then yes, changes in production, technology, and machinery. Right now, there are types of technology that you can get it to use it. Like, you can use the technology, modern technology. But now when you are using the technology, sometimes that might give you a risk. Sometimes employees, they might not know to adapt themselves for this new technology and machinery. That is also a risk, right? So increase in market competition. The market there are so many, that you have to face the competition. Sometimes your competitor might be selling faster than you. Okay, so the competitor must be catching the market than you, right? So increase in market competition is also a risk for you. So you need to face that as well. Okay, then scarcity of raw material. It's raw material, it's scarce. Power failure and shortage of work. These are risks. Okay, employee problems and strikes. Sometimes now smoothly you can work, right, for this month, but you never know. Now you don't know next month what will happen. So they might go for a strike. Okay, so that is also a risk. Then fire, theft, burglary, and accidents. Those are risks. Incorrect management decisions also, right, on using the business resources. That is also a risk. Okay, so what are the other risks now here? Changes in consumer taste, design, demand, and culture. One person sent me the culture years, that is also can be taken. Changes in production technology and machinery, increase in market competition, scarcity of raw material, power failure, and shortage of work. Then employee problems and strikes, fire, theft, burglary, and accidents. Then incorrect management decisions and using the business resources. So these can be treated as the risks. All right, so that is also as a risk is a characteristic. Then create warns. As I told you very early, create warns. The businesses, they create warns by using several advertisements, promotions. They are creating warns. From that only they can sell their products. Okay, so businesses produce goods and services to satisfy human wants. Some businesses turn raw material into finished goods to satisfy human wants. Some businesses satisfy human wants by transporting products from place to place, right? Then now, some businesses satisfy human wants by storing at the time of harvesting. Now you can store those. Now during harvesting time, you can store the goods, right? And when there is a scarcity, you can provide the goods that you have stored, right? Then accordingly, every business creates human wants by providing goods and rendering services. I can render a service and or else I can provide a good. So every business, if it's a business, you should provide a good or else you need to render a service. All right, so that is another characteristic, create wants. And economic activity, right? Business is an economic activity. Businesses are essentially considered as economic activities. Why? They produce goods and services using limited resources. When you are describing this point, children, economic activity, you need to write this. Produce goods and services using limited resources, right? So there are certain terms, key terms that you need to use during the exam, right? Even though you have written pages and pages, you don't get proper marks if you don't use those key terms. Okay, so you have to be very careful when you are writing answers. You need to use those proper terms. Right now, if you're explaining an economic activity, instead of writing producing goods and services using limited resources, if you write something without that, then you will not get marks. Okay, so you need to write that because, and the other thing, it is money oriented. That is also should be included, right? Businesses are essentially considered as economic activities since they produce goods and services. Because now even though you need to produce something, only limited resources are available here, right? So resources are not, plenty of resources you don't get, no, right? You have only limited resources. So the successful businessman takes the advantage of this. He takes the minimum resources and gives the maximum output. right? That's the thing that we are expecting from a successful businessman. Okay, and it is money oriented, right? So that's the main point. It is money oriented. Businesses are economic activities since they sell goods and services and use limited resources. So now you know how to write now. All right, then that is an economic activity, right? Then there are two main activities of a business, children. Okay, so now before that, again, I would like to, recall these characteristics of a business, right? What are the characteristics? Once again, exchange or selling takes place, transaction of goods and services take place, continuous transaction will take place, motivated by profit, has a risk, creates wants, and economic activity. All right, so these are the characteristics of a business. Then we'll see the next one. Two main activities of a business. If you have a business, you might be doing two activities, right? What are these two activities? Fulfillment of needs and wants. And the other one is adding value to the resources. So these are the main two activities. Now, please don't mix these activities with goals, right? The goals separately you need to write and you need to study. Activities, only these two activities. If they ask what are two main activities of a business, only these two you need to write. Other than that, you can't write anything, right? What are two main activities? Fulfillment of needs and wants. As I told you, now we do the business where ultimate target is to fulfill the needs and wants. And the other one is adding value to the resource. This is also something very important. Adding value to the resources. Now we'll see what value addition, adding value. It is like the increment of the value of resources, right? Now I will take an example. Now you're making tables, right? So when you're making table, you have to take a wood, right? Then you have to pay the supplier and you have to get that. And when you take that, you can't just give that as a table. No, you have to do certain, steps, right? You have to cut that. When you cut that wood, then you're adding a value. When you, fix, you cut and you fix legs, you're adding values. When you put a nail even, you're adding value, right? So when you polish the table, you're adding a value to that, right? So likewise, stages that you have to pass, right, by adding value to that resource, right? Then you have converted that into a table now, the wood that you have converted into a table. So all the stages that you have passed are the value addition, right? Because you have given some increments of the value to that resource, right? So value addition is the increment of the value of resources, which happens when the nature of the resource is changed during the production of goods and services. So now my example, I think that it's so much practical. So now take those examples and just get the stuff. So it's easy other than, trying to buy heart everything. Okay, so value addition is that you are adding a value to that resource. Okay, when you get the timber, so the wood, so you have paid the seller and you bought it, right? So then after that you did some, the processes, no, right? You changed, that raw material into a finished good. So there you passed some stages, right? So when businesses change the nature of the resources, there will be a value addition, right? So accordingly, the value addition to the resources will be an activity of the business. All right, so this is about value addition. Now, what are two main activities of a business? Fulfillment of needs and wants and adding value to the resources, right? These are two main activities. Then, goals of a business. That's what I told you. Don't mix those activities and goals, right? Goals separately you need to study. Now, what are goals of a business? if you have a business. Now, I told you earlier also, when you are studying business studies, when you're writing answers for business studies, you need to think that you have your own business, right? Then if you have a business, what are your goals? Survival in the market. That's the first thing, right? You need to survive. Wait. Yes, exactly. You can write the same thing, right? So there's no harm. You can write the same thing. You can write, wait, I'll show you again. You can write the same thing, right? So because it's the same thing that you need to write, and like if you have written only this even, that's enough. Like businesses changes the nature of the resources and value. So first thing that you need to write is the increment of the value of the resource. This part, sorry, this one, yes, this part is very much important. Okay, so you can just create your own definition, but these terms should be there. So your one is also okay, right? So you can use the same thing, it doesn't matter. Then goals of a business. Now I told you what is the first goal? Survival in the market. If you just come and go, that is not a business, no, right? It is not a goal, no. If you want to, like, if you are going to have a business, you want to, stay there, right? Survive there in the market for a long period of time. That is your ultimate goal. You like that, right? Then sales maximization. If you are doing something, you like to, maximize your sales, no? That is your goal, right? You're trying to maximize your sales. Okay. And the other thing, increasing consumer satisfaction. If the consumer is satisfied only, that person will buy the product again. If he's not satisfied, that consumer will not buy your product, right? So you need to give a proper product to increase consumer satisfaction. So that is also a goal of a business, right? Increasing consumer satisfaction. And the other one, maximizing the market value of a share. So by increasing consumer satisfaction, by increasing sales, you can maximize the market value. Then personal satisfaction of a businessman. Now, if you are running a business, right? By doing that, if you don't get now suppose that you are producing a particular product, but you do that, you are trying to survive in the market, you maximize sales, you increase consumer satisfaction, but you are not happy from your business. So that is not a goal of a business. You also should get satisfaction by doing that, right? You need to have self-satisfaction. So we all should have children. By teaching, I also should have my personal satisfaction, right? Because of that only I do this, right? Because I satisfy. Then social and community welfare. You need to do something to the society also, children, right? So you gain something from them, no? Right? You gain something from them, resources. So you need to give something in return. So social and community welfare is also a goal. Employee welfare. Now, employees, they do that for you, right? So you also should do something for them. Employee welfare, yeah, their health, their safety, you need to think about them, right? You can provide them free meal, right? Then profit maximization. So that is also your goal, trying to maximize the profit. Then increasing market share. Okay, so you are trying to increase the market share as well, right? So what are the goals of a business? Survival in the market, sales maximization, increasing consumer satisfaction, then maximizing the market value of shares, personal satisfaction of a businessman, social and community welfare, employee welfare, profit maximization, increasing market share. So these are goals of a business. Now I told you not to mix with activities. So only if they ask activities of business, only 2 activities. What are those 2 activities? Fulfillment of needs and wants, adding value to the resources. If they ask goals, you can write all these goals, right? Then we'll see the way the business contribute to the existing of the economy. How can the business contribute to the existing of the economy? Satisfying wants, which are complex and changing. You know the church wants are very complex and changing also. If you can satisfy them, you can contribute to the existing of the economy. Right? Innovation, you can innovate things. They are in the organization. Right? So from that also you can contribute to the existing of the economy. And you can generate employment opportunities. Now you can provide jobs, right? So from that way also you can contribute to the existing of the economy. And national economic development. Ultimately, you can contribute to national economic development as well, right? So these are the ways that the business contribute to the existing of the economy. Then we'll see there are certain other things that you need to know here. Self-sufficient economy. Self-sufficient, from the term itself, you will get an idea on what is self-sufficient. One produced for his own requirement, right? Now we'll take the previous example. You are cultivating vegetables, right? You are cultivating vegetables for your consumption. That is self-sufficient economy, right? Direct production is also the same. Producing his own requirement by himself is also known as direct production, right? So by doing this, now suppose you are cultivating vegetables for you, right? For yourself. So you do that over and over again, right? You do the cultivation. So what will happen? Specialization will grow, right? Will develop specialization. Why is that? Because you are doing that same thing again and again. So you will be specialized in that area. So from direct production, specialization can arise, right? And remember, self-sufficient economy is also one produced for his own requirement. Direct production is also producing for his own requirement. Because of this direct production, specialization will develop. Then what is this barter system? Exchange of goods and services for other goods and services, right? Without exchanging any form of money. You don't use monetary value for this, right? Barter system, exchanging goods to goods, right? That is barter system. Now, earlier we didn't have. Earlier they had barter system. They didn't have money, right? They exchange goods to goods, right? So then they found out there are some drawbacks of barter system, right? So what are the drawbacks of barter system? Double coincidence. What is double coincidence? I think that I have given those drawbacks. Yes. Now here. What are the drawbacks of barter system? Lack of double coincidence of wants. What do you mean by double coincidence, children? Now, both parties, the seller and the buyer, agree to sell or buy the goods or the services. So that is double coincidence. So suppose that I have wheat and I'm going to sell that, right? If a person has wheat and he wants to exchange it for rice, right? So now another person also has rice and he wants to exchange that with wheat, right? So then matching, the double coincidence. Lack of double coincidence in the sense I have wheat, I want rice, right? But there is another person, he also has wheat, he also needs rice. So it is not matching. So that is lack of double coincidence, right? Then lack of common measure of value. You can't measure no exactly, right? So when you're exchanging goods to goods, I'm giving pumpkin, he's giving brinjals, right? How can I measure that? No. Indivisibility of certain goods. You cannot divide into proper portions. And difficulty in making deferred payment. What do you mean by deferred payment? To pay in future, right? It is difficult to pay in future, right? You can't say, no, that I will give this brinjal in future. No, it is difficult. Difficulty in storing value. You can't keep for a long time because it's perishable, right? So these are the drawbacks of barter system. So because of these drawbacks, their trade emerged, right? So they found, now Earlier, they exchanged goods to goods. That was barter system. They found some limitations, drawbacks of barter system. Then because of that, the solution was trade, right? Trade emerged with the barter system. So then what is indirect production? Producing for the market, right? Direct production is producing for your consumption. Indirect production is producing for the market. So that is indirect production. So various materials were used as the medium of exchange to overcome the drawbacks of barter system, right? So as I told you earlier, those drawbacks to overcome, there were certain things came up, right? So that's money. Okay, so evolution of money. What was the first thing they used? They used materials such as seashells, tobacco. They used materials. That was the first stage, first thing that they used. Second one, they used some metals, right, such as gold and silver, right? In ancient times, gold coins, silver coins, right? Then third one, use of metallic money. So the values were imprinted on the face of the metal piece, right? So that was use of metal money. Then use of coins and notes after that, right? So after that, they used coins and notes, right? So then now here Sri Lanka rupees, Great Britain pounds, USA dollars, right? Then use of bank money. What is bank money? Current account checks. Those are bank money. Then after that, use of electronic money. Now we use electronic money at present. Credit cards, debit cards, prepaid cards, right? Those are electronic money. Then before that, again, I'll just check the evolution of money. What was the first stage? Use of materials, use of metals, use of metal money, use of coins and notes, use of bank money, use of electronic money, right? These are the stages. So likewise, the business also has some stages. Now, what are the stages of business? The first one, barter system, right? So barter system, now you know, exchanging goods to goods. The second, usage of money. They used money. Third one, industrial revolution. Industrial revolution, they have invented the wheel. Then after that, they started big factories, right? So that was the third stage. Then information era. So we are experiencing information era, everything on using information, right? So what is the evolution of business? What is the first stage? Barter system. Second stage, usage of money. Third one, industrial revolution. Fourth one, information era, right? So these are the stages of business. So you can't, when there is a question like to write evolution of business, you can't skip one or two. You need to write all these four stages in a proper manner, right? Otherwise you won't get marks. Properly you need to write those four stages, right? Then commerce. What is commerce? It is the combination of trade and auxiliary services or business support services. Okay, commerce is the combination of trade and business support services. So now we'll see here. You can see the flow chart. Trade and auxiliary services. Auxiliary services are business support services. What are the services that support the business? What facilitates the business? Right? Now, trade can be two types, local and foreign. Right? So, local is the domestic trade. So, domestic trade or else local trade, you can divide into two, retail and wholesale. Foreign trade also you can divide into two as import and export. Then auxiliary services, business support services, banking, transport, insurance, communication, warehousing. So these services are supporting the businesses, right? Banking, when you are doing a business, you are dealing with checks, right? You need to obtain loans. So you need to deal with banks. So if you are doing a business, you need to transport your product to a consumer or the market. right? Or else another purchaser. So that you need transport. It is a business support service. So you need to insure your products. You need to insure your factory, right? And so that is insurance. That also will support you. Then communication. You need to communication. You need to get an order from abroad. You need to get the information from your employees, right? Sellers. That you need communication, right? So that is also a support service. Warehousing. You need to store the things, right? When needed to give. So that's warehousing. So you need, that is also a support service, right? So what is the flow chart? What is, if they ask what commerce is, how do you write? It's a combination of trade and auxiliary services, right? So trade can be two types, local and foreign. Local can be two types, retail and wholesale. Foreign trade can be two types, import and export. Then auxiliary services, banking, transport, insurance, communication, warehousing. So this is commerce. Then I would like to show the flow chart of business as well. Okay, 1 minute, children. I'll show that also, the business flow chart. Here. Yes, you can, but here you cannot divide in that way, right? Entry pot and re-export, where that you take the goods into the country and you do some changes, and the other thing that you don't take the goods into the country, you keep that in the warehouse and do. No, we normally we don't divide in that way. Only under trade we just explain that, but even though we don't divide in that manner, it's you can say types. You can say there are certain types of, right? Mainly you don't divide. Don't try to divide in that manner. Okay, so then that will be a problem. Okay, so hope you can see this business flow chart. If they ask what business is, now this is what you need to do, right? So now here commerce, you know now. Business is the combination of industries and commerce, right? So now earlier what the question that I asked was commerce. What commerce is? Commerce you can divide as trade and auxiliary service. Business is the combination of industries and commerce. So now how do you divide industries? Extractive industries and manufacturing industries. What are extractive industries? You take the materials, or if you do the businesses using on the surface of the earth or below the earth, that is extractive industries. Manufacturing industries in the sense, the raw material that you get from this, and if you convert that into another finished good, that is manufacturing. If you convert, now suppose for an example I'll tell you, you do fishing, right? So fishing, that comes under extractive industry, right? You take the fish and you know make, I mean, you can them, right? You just sorry, you do like can it, right? So that is manufacturing. You convert that into another finished good, so that conversion thing comes under manufacturing industries. Okay. 1 minute, children. All right. So now here, industries, extractive, manufacturing. So extractive, farming, fisheries, mining. Manufacturing, converting, assembling, constructing, right? You extractive industries, basically primary. You do the businesses using on the surface of the earth or below the earth, right? You do farming, you fisheries, and mining. So that is extractive. Whatever the things you get from these extractive industries, if you convert them, those things into finished good, that is manufacturing, right? So what do you do under manufacturing? Converting, assembling, constructing. All right. Yes, right. You can write primary, secondary instead of extractive industries or manufacturing industries. You can write. You can write primary and secondary. That's the way that we use. Okay. All right. So then, all right. So then again, once again, children, business can be two types. Right? Two types, industries and commerce. So industries can be two types. Primary, as since that extractive and manufacturing it's a bit complicated, I'll use the terms primary, secondary, but you need to know extractive is also a similar term for primary. Manufacturing also can be used for secondary. So extractive or primary can be divided as farming, fisheries, mining, and then manufacturing industries can be divided as converting, assembling, constructing. So commerce, I don't want to explain furthermore because you know, now I explained earlier on what commerce is, right? So it is the combination of trade and auxiliary services. All right. So now, wait. Then next one, electronic commerce. What is this electronic commerce? When buying and selling activities are conducted through internet, so it is known as electronic commerce, right? So there's nothing new. Electronic business is when all that activities which belongs to business, if you are doing through the internet, that is electronic business, right? And reasons for the popularity of electronic commerce. Now the electronic commerce is very popular, children. Why? What are the reasons? Because business information can be exchanged without documents. You don't need to fill documents, everything that you can do it here, right? Speeding up the business activities, right? You don't want to send the document through post. You don't want to spend your time like that, right? Speeding up of business activities, minimizing operational cost and inventory cost as well, right? Then you can just go to global market, right? Increase the quality of goods and services, saving customers time and energy as well. Increasing computer literacy. Now, sometimes you might not know how to operate this computer. Then after that, you will be learning somehow or other, since that there's no option, you need to do this. So that computer skills also that you can enhance. Improvement of infrastructure facilities as well, right? So these are the reasons for the popularity of electronic commerce. Then new trends in business field. So what are the new trends in business field? Expansion of globalization. You can buy something if you want anything that you can buy from another country, you can sell it to another country. Expansion of globalization. Emergence of electronic business. You can just do online shopping, right? If you want some materials, you can just check through the internet and you can buy that. Use of electronic money, debit and credit cards. Sorry. Concern on environment, right? You think about the environment, eco-friendly products, right? Without polluting the environment, you are trying to do it. So they are trying to, encourage that, right? In Sweden, they have some machines that they have installed for you to, put if there are cans or if there's, litter, you can just take them and you can put that into the machine and you get the coupon or the receipt. So you can provide that receipt and you can just get the goods from the supermarket. That's how they conserve the environment, right? So concern on business and social responsibility, right? These are new trends. I told you business social responsibility. Anyway, that we are going to discuss, that's a second lesson, right? So social responsibility is in brief, if I explain this in brief, so it is something that resources you get from the society, so to produce. So you also need to do something for them, right? So if you do something, if you get something from them, if you do something in return, that is business social responsibility, right? So these are the new trends, children. What are new trends? Expansion of globalization, emergence of electronic business, use of electronic money, concern on environment, concern on business social responsibilities, right? So these are new trends in the business field. Then something very important, classification of business. How do you classify business, right? So there are ways of classifying business, children. According to the nature of the production. How are you going to produce this? According to the nature that you can classify business. According to the ownership, who owns this? According to that, you can classify. According to the goals, you can classify the business. According to the scale, you can classify. According to the production sector, you can classify. Now we'll see. According to the nature, you can classify as primary, secondary, and tertiary. So I showed you the flowchart of business. Primary. So where that you extract the natural resources, right? So that is primary. Secondary, you convert the natural resources into other products. That is secondary. Tertiary, all services are tertiary, right? So now primary sector, you get agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining and quarrying. Secondary, manufacturing, construction. Tertiary, all the services including electricity, gas providing steam and air conditioning, right? And all the other services. Then if you categorize according to the ownership, what are the two types? Private sector businesses and public sector businesses. Private owned businesses, right? So where there are private sector businesses, government owned businesses are there. So according to the ownership, you can categorize businesses. Then according to the objectives, profit motive businesses, non-profit motive businesses, that is according to the objectives. Then according to the scale, small and medium scale businesses, large scale businesses, that is according to the scale you can divide, you can classify. According to the production sector, agriculture, industries, and services, you can categorize, right? So, sorry. Again, according to the nature of the production, you can categorize as primary, secondary, tertiary. Then according to the ownership, you can categorize as private sector and public sector. According to the objectives, that you can categorize as profit motive and non-profit motive. According to the scale, you can categorize as small and medium scale and large scale. Then according to the production sector, you can categorize as agriculture, industries, and services. Right? So if now the sectorial composition of the GDP according to the annual report of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, that I can give you a list, right? So according to that, you can find the GDP. So you will be, if you are studying economics, you will be doing this gross domestic product and gross national product, right? Here we don't go in detail, but we do in a small manner, and we need to know what comes under the sectorial wise. So what comes under primary sector, what comes under tertiary sector. So likewise you need to know, right? Then I'll show you the list. I'll show you the list, then you will get an idea. Right now here you can see under agriculture, right? Agriculture, you will get tea, rubber, coconut, right? Minor export crops, paddy, livestock, other waste crops, plantation development, timber and forestry, other agricultural crops. Then under fishing, you can see under mining and quarrying, manufacturing, right? Then electricity, gas and water. Okay, so likewise, there is a list. Okay, so then you need to go through this list and you need to know what comes under what, right? Then, all right, we'll go back to the lesson. So if I say like this, mining and quarrying, that comes under primary sector when you are classifying according to the nature of production. So when you are classifying according to the nature of production, mining and quarrying comes under the primary sector. But if you are classifying under industries, source of industries, mining and quarrying comes under industries. So these are the only, differences that you need to know. According to the nature of the production, if you are classifying electricity, gas and water comes under tertiary. It is considered as a service. If you are according to the source of industry, electricity, gas and come under industries, right? These are the small differences that you need to know. All right. Then the other one, inputs used in business activities. This is of course very much familiar. You know what are the inputs that we use in business activities? Land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, information, time, knowledge. These are the inputs. So normally think practically. So if you are going to produce something, you need inputs. So these are the inputs that you need. Then to convert that, you need to do some functions, right? So these are the functions that you do. You have administration, you have production, marketing, financial activities, human resources activities, research and development. So these are the basic functions that you do to convert those inputs into outputs, right? So then finally that you are going to release the output by doing all these functions, right? So this also you need to think, practically. Administration, you need to do some admin part, like, okay, you need to have some records, you need to have some files, maintaining files. Then you need to know the product, that comes under production. So after producing that particular product, you need to sell that. So that comes under marketing. Then you need to know what the real profit that you have gained. That comes under financial activities. Then you need to recruit employees, you need to promote them. So that comes under human resource activities. Then you need to know about competitors, what are their strategies and what the market, situation of the market. So you need some research and development. So these are the basic functions, children. So think practically without trying to by heart all these things. So these are the basic functions you do, right? So inputs are land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. So the basic functions, you convert those inputs into outputs, right? Then if you take an example of a garment factory, so if they are asking you to write the conversion process, input output process of a garment factory, you can't just write inputs, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, time, knowledge, right? You need to write land and you need to write what comes under land. If it's a garment factory, what comes under land? Land where the building is situated. Ventilation, sunlight, that is also comes under land, children. Okay, so don't just write land. You need to write, if it's a bank, just take a bank. What comes under land? The land where building is situated, ventilation, sunlight. Then labor. If it's a garment factory, labor, physical and mental labor of the tailor, physical and mental labor of the supervisors, mental labor of the managers, labor of the watchmen. Then capital, buildings, sewing machines, equipment, distributing vehicles, materials, thread, buttons, zips, money, right? These things can be known as capital. Then entrepreneurship. Now, decision maker of the combination of resources. Decision maker who undertakes risks, individuals or institutes. That is entrepreneurship. Then information, designs that suit with consumer taste, new information about raw materials, information about new technology, information about the market. These things come under information, right? Then time, working hours of employees, working hours of machines, time taken to make decisions. Obtaining paid, now if you take the knowledge, obtaining patent for new products, skills of garment employees, knowledge processed by managers, knowledge of designing technicians, right? So legal advisors, knowledge, right? So understood, when you're writing input output process, right? Don't write just land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, time, knowledge. Under that, you need to write what comes under time, what comes under knowledge, what comes under land. According to the example, you have to write. According to the question, if they have asked you to write the input output process for a bank, it has to be relevant to the bank. If it's for a bakery, you need to write for the bakery, right? Then the basic functions. These are the functions. Then you will get the output. What is the output? Output is the garment, quality garment, right? Because it's a good. Now, if we take now, not only for goods, no, you get for services as well. If it's a banking sector, right? If it's a bank, so you can write the same thing as inputs, right? Land, you can write the same things. Labor also, just change the term, right? Then what will be now the basic functions also the same as this. What will be the output, children? Then what will be the output? If it's a bank, comfortable customers, satisfied customers, right? You can't just mention a product for that output. So output is the comfortable customers or satisfied customers, right? So when it comes for these basic functions also, you can't just write administration, production, marketing like that. So you need to write what comes under administration as well. Now see, under administration, preparing garment employees files, providing relevant advisors, maintaining attendance sheets, right? Then production, obtaining raw materials, inventory control, quality control, right? So likewise, you need to write what comes under those functions as well. Now, marketing, you can see distribution of garments, advertising, deciding of prices, financial activities, obtaining funds, paying salaries, investing funds, human resource activities, recruiting of employees, training them, promoting them. So these functions also you need to write in a proper way, right? Then research and development, you can see conducting researches, new innovations, improving the products, exploring low-cost methods. Then management information, maintaining information system, obtaining new information, updating the information activities, right? Then, so now I hope that it is clear, right? Input output process. Now, this is how they ask, write the input output process of a garment factory, right? So you need to first, now you can divide into 3 columns, children. First column, you can write all the inputs, right? Then second column, functions, then the output. So there are also input you need to write in detail, right? Functions also the same as that you need to write. Likewise, like the way that I have divided, right? Then the output, you need to specifically mention what output is it, right? Then if you take stakeholders, who are stakeholders? The people who have the interest over the business are stakeholders, right? Owners, right? They have the interest over the business. Managers, employees, creditors, customers, suppliers, potential investors, government, community, and other parties. So these are the stakeholders of business, right? So now you need here, under this, you need to know why do they have the interest over the business from stakeholders side. And from businesses perspective also you need to write why business needs these stakeholders, right? From both the parties you need to know the facts, right? So now if you take the reasons for the interest of each stakeholder, if you take owners, right? Why do we care about these owners? Why? to know if they receive an adequate profit for the money that they have invested, right? And to find about the growth of the business, to know the market share. Then managers to maximize the profit, to know the growth of the business, to know the successfulness of the management decisions. Then employees to obtain higher salaries, to obtain bonuses, to get promotions, right? Then debtors to know the ability of recovering the loans, to know the safety of the lendings, to ensure the safety of collaterals. Customers to receive quality goods and services, you need to know, right? To see if the responsibilities are fulfilled properly, to ensure the existence of the business. Then suppliers to receive continuous orders, to collect money back for the goods supply. Then potential investors to invest their resources in the business in future. So who are these potential investors? Those who are trying to invest in future. They are potential investors. So they also have the interest over the business, right? And you also should have the interest over them, right? Then government to collect taxes, to improve the employment and to provide employment, to measure the economic development. Then community to know about the environmental protection, to obtain job opportunities. Entrepreneurship. So now here, examples for entrepreneurship. Now these are the entrepreneurships that we discussed now. Yeah. Now entrepreneurship is, now it's, who is the entrepreneur? The person who innovates, right? The process he undergoes is known as entrepreneurship. All right. So now if they are in the organization, entrepreneurship is, now if he's trying to innovate something and if he's taking a decision regarding new innovation, that comes under entrepreneurship, right? But entrepreneurship is a process, right? Decision maker who undertakes risks. Now, if you are an entrepreneur, you take risks. By taking a risk only, you innovate. Okay, so existing employee can be an entrepreneur in the organization. Okay, right? So that you can write in that manner. Skills, what do you mean by skills? Skills in the sense you need to write how they, like, combine those resources to provide innovations, right? If they ask skills, yes, entrepreneurial skills you can write. Yeah, correct. Entrepreneurial skills you can write. Risk taking, those things you can write. Then yes. Then now from the other side, reasons for the importance of stakeholders to business, right? From businesses' perspective, owners to increase the investment, to ensure the existence of the business. Then employees to improve the employees' efficiency. Sorry, to retain the employees, to get the employee attraction. Then debtors to obtain the funds continuously, to obtain the funds at low cost. Then customers to protect the market of the relevant goods and services, to build up consumer confidence, to create consumer loyalty, right? So these are the things, right? Now, if they ask stakeholders, why do they have the interest over the business? From businesses' perspective, they can ask. From stakeholders' perspective, they can ask. So you need to know both, right? Yes. How can I do that? One minute, I'm trying to do it. All right. Mm, yes, done. Okay, so children, so now you know now this foundation of business, it has two parts. Now, first part I'm done with that. So the other part is business environment, that is also included in the first unit, right? So it's a lengthy lesson. So I thought that I will divide that and teach you all, right? So the first part now I taught you all, right? So the second part. That I will teach you next week, so from the business environment. So now up to now, if you have any doubts and any questions, you can just send through the chat box, and so or else that you can send me, or else that we now next week anyway that we will be meeting now. So at that time you can just ask me or through the chat box. Right, so I'm going to start business environment next week, and after completing that, we can just I will just show you some past paper questions, how they have asked, right? Okay, 1 minute. Mm, there's no place for me to do that for Nana Power. Mm, 1 minute, I'll try to do this. Um, right, children, so then I thought of doing it in that manner, right? So then if you have any doubts, if you have any clarifications, you can just send me through the chat box, then I will answer you. Because now after completing the first unit, I thought that I will show you some past paper questions, and we'll discuss those questions before going to the second unit, right? So hope that you have got the benefit, and thank you for joining, children. Hope to see you all next week. Okay.
Thank you so much, madam.
Okay.
We got some interruptions as well,
Yes.
and sorry for that. And කියන්න ඕනේ අපේ සම්බන්ධුන යාළුවන්ට අපේ දුවදරුවන්ට කියන්න ඕනේ අද දේශනයට ඔයගලන්ගේ යාළුවන්ට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න බැරි වුණා නම් ඒගලන්ට කියන්න අපි හැම සඳදා දිනකම හවස 4 ඉඳන් 6 වෙනකම් අපේ වාණිජාංශයේ ඉංග්‍රීසි මීඩියම් වලින් හදාරන අපේ දුවදරුවන් වෙනුවෙන් මේ බිස්නස් ස්ටඩීස් දේශන මාලාව අරගෙන එනවා. මේ විෂය නිර්දේශ අවසන් වනතුරුම අපේ ආදරණීය සංජීවනී මැඩම් අපේ නැනපවුරත් එක්ක එකතු වෙලා ඉන්නවා. ඉතින් අද දින ඔයගලන්ට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න බැරි වුණා නම් ඔයගලන්ගේ යාළුවන්ට ඔයගලන්ට මැදදී අතපසුවීමක් වුණා නම් නැනපවුර YouTube channel එකෙන් අද දේශනය ඔයගලන්ට නැරඹීමේ හැකියාව තියෙනවා. ඉතින් යාළුවන්ට ෂෙයා කරන්න ලබන සතියේ ඉඳන් යාළුවනුත් එක්ක සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න. මොකද අපි මේක මුල ලංකාවක්ම ආවරණය වන පරිදි සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම නොමිලේ කරන වැඩසටහනක්. ඉතින් කිසිදු වැයකිරීමක් සිදු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. අපි links යොමු කරන්නේ අපේ WhatsApp groups වලට. WhatsApp groups වල ඔයගොල්ලෝ join වෙලා නැත්නම් ඔයගොල්ලෝ නැනපොර YouTube channel එකට ගිහිල්ලා comment section එකේ දාන්න link එක දාන්න කියලා අපි group එකේ link එක දාන්නම්. එහෙම නැත්නම් Telegram group එකට join වෙන්න. Telegram group එකේ WhatsApp groups links තියෙනවා. එහෙම join වීමේ හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා. එහෙනම් නැවත වතාවක් අද සම්බන්ධ වුණු අපේ සංජීවනී මැඩම්ට බොහොමත්ම ස්තුතියි. ආරාධනා කරනවා දිගටම නැනපොරත් එක්ක එකතු වෙලා ඉන්න කියලා. අපි තවත්